Welcome everyone, this is Evelina, Feel, Grow, Live. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about 5 non-obvious reasons why you should consider going to therapy. When I ask my clients how long it took them to go to therapy from the moment they started thinking about it, it's usually 2 to 3 years. And when I ask them at the end of therapy whether they have any regrets related to therapy, they usually say, I regret not doing it sooner. So in the hope of maybe helping you to decide quicker for you and finding reasons to go to therapy beyond the obvious ones, I've created this video so maybe you can save a little bit of time and maybe you can do things for yourself or simply for the purpose of crossing them off the list. So I'm not saying that therapy is always successful and the therapy is always beneficial, and as you know it may not be from probably talking to friends or family, but there are things that happen in therapy that not many people talk about. So this is a sort of knowledge from the other side, from being a therapist, which I think are really crucial. And the list could also be called Why Therapy Works. The list hugely overlaps with what my job description, and job of every therapist is to create those conditions, because they're conditions for the therapy to be beneficial. Okay, and I want you to also realize that if you go to therapy, if you don't have an experience of those things, then that something is wrong. Maybe it's not a good match between you or the therapist, and maybe you should look for someone else. Okay, reason number 1, you get to be listened. In today's world, not a very common experience. As you know, look around yourself, we don't tend to be listened and we don't know how to listen. And when you go to therapy and for 55 minutes a week, you experience the time where you are being listened by another human being whose attention is all on you. That in itself, that experience in itself, has a really healing, nurturing effect on the psyche, right? So think about what happens and how children behave when you don't listen to them, how frustrated they are. Think about how you feel when you're talking to someone and you know that they're not listening. So being in therapy should be the opposite of that experience. So this is a condition. So if you go to therapy and if you don't feel listened to, something is going on. So the therapist's attention might be on something else, and obviously it happens sometimes. We're only humans, but if you don't get that experience when you don't feel listened, that should be a red flag. So if you do have a good experience, if you are a good match, and if a therapist is a professional one, then you'll get that experience of being listened, of having someone's attention on you, and that in itself can be very healing. It doesn't matter what you say and what the therapist says in return. The crucial, essential thing is for you to experience of being listened to. Okay. Reason number 2, being seen. That may look very similar to being listened, but it sort of completes the picture, completes the experience. It would feel completely differently if you are listened to, but the therapist's eyes are, for example, closed. So it's an exchange. It's a visual and auditory exchange where the therapist is there for you. And again, it's one of those aspects of therapeutic space where where our nervous system can have a chance to feel safe and can relax, so you can open up and then tackle other things or talk about other things, right? Without those two aspects of being listened and being seen, I don't think that it can have any positive effect. And so this is how important it is. And similarly to being listened to, if you go and to see a therapist and their eyes are all around the room, or they are unable to sustain eye contact, and I'm not talking about staring for 55 minutes at you, I'm talking about expressing curiosity through their eyes, expressing, validating their experience of seeing you by, again, sort of visual attention on you, right? It's really, really important, and that in itself has a healing effect on the psyche and creates conditions around you that only in those conditions your nervous system and your psyche can, it's like a feedback to tell you that you are safe and you are in a safe environment and you can open up. Reason number 3, articulating your inner world. That's a big one. I don't want to rate them, but this seems to be one of the most important ones. Articulating your inner world. And again, it doesn't matter what you say and what the therapist says in return. You get to be in a space in which you can hear yourself talk, where you can allow yourself to self-express through words. You can articulate your experience, your emotions, your feelings, your pain, and you can, and by that, I mean, a lot of things happen during the session, in between the lines and underneath the surface. But when you are given the space, when a human being, a person, an individual, you, in other words, are given the space to express yourself, magic things happen, right? Your psyche organizes itself. Your feelings, emotions are given words and labels. You unload it. And then as a result of that, you understand yourself better. A lot of clients report feeling a lot lighter, unburdened by their thoughts and emotions, and also by their pain. You can express the same thing in many different things. So again, it doesn't really matter what you say and how you say. The mere fact that you are trying to express yourself, you know, clients very often say, oh, I'm sorry, this is really messy, or it doesn't really matter. What matters is you are there, you're being listened, you're being seen, and there's a 55-minute for you where you don't have to think about what you say, where you don't have to think whether this is organized, whether this is in chronological order, or whether this is your truth and you're articulating yourself. And that's one of the reasons why therapy works, because this is one of the most primary human needs, to express themselves, to express who they are. And by articulating yourself and your inner world in therapy, you're doing exactly that. You're meeting your very primary need. Reason number 4, you are making an attempt at making things better. And it can seem like an obvious reason to go to therapy, but people don't give themselves enough credit at doing things differently. Sitting in front of a stranger and trying to learn to communicate with them and trying to open up to them, it's one of the most courageous things you can do, and that's exactly what you're doing. You are dealing with how you feel, and you are dealing with your pain in the most constructive way. A lot of what we do on a daily basis, it doesn't really serve us, unfortunately. We get into the autopilot of repeating stuff that doesn't really feed us in any way, doesn't really make us feel better in a long run, and we only concentrate on pleasure today because everything is available at your fingertips. But going to therapy, making an appointment, writing that email, or making the phone call, or taking the phone call, and being there, it is a way of showing up for yourself. So it's an extremely constructive way of facing up to how you feel internally and to tackling your struggles, right? So, and it cannot be underestimated. And as with the other 3 reasons, we need to talk about consistency here. Experiencing those things once or doing them once, it's not enough. It doesn't really have the same effect. It can give you a relief for a day or 2, but it's not going to be a consistent or lasting change in the way you feel or the way you can relate to yourself. Also, when it comes to making things better, you are being proactive. You're not being passive. You're not passively doing something. So you are learning to be doing something that has a potential to instill a skill in you. You can think to yourself, that I've done this and that was really proactive, so I can do things proactively. I have some autonomy either over how I spend my money, how I spend my time, because a lot of the times we are really passively receiving. We're receiving context. We have to go to work and we have very little say in how we spend our days or time or money. So therefore, this is one of the ways in which you are you are giving yourself feedback that you are capable of being proactive and constructive, and that's really important and should not be overlooked. Reason number 5 is you are facing your fear and discomfort, and you are exercising courage. And again, that's one of the ways in which we learn. We learn a skill, right? And today anxiety in people is really high because we're all being fed fearful context, right? We being everything around us is falling apart. That's the general impression. And one of the ways in which anxiety is managed in therapy and symptoms of anxiety are managed, of course, one of the ways in which that is done is to understand where is it from and what triggers it, etc. But also alongside of those, you also getting more skilled at being braver, at being courageous. So you are getting stronger than your anxiety. And an act of coming to therapy and showing up for yourself, and showing up even though it's expensive, it's not comfortable, it's difficult to get there, or it's difficult to find a time. Every time you do, you are growing. And you are growing stronger than your anxiety. So you can say to yourself, actually, I was scared, but I did it anyway. So that's your evidence how strong you are, how courageous you are, that you are stronger than your anxiety. And that's very, very important. Right, so to sum up, I want you to remember that the five reasons to go to therapy, they could also be called skills. And as with every skill you get, once you consistently repeat something, you get better and better at it. So therapy is all about learning new ways of being, learning more serving ways of being in the world, reframing, dealing with your understandings of things and dealing with your pain. And I want you to respect that you have that thought. I want you to consider that if you've been thinking, oh, shall I not, you're going back and forth on your decision, but that thought doesn't want to leave you, even though you persuaded yourself 50 times that you don't have the time, you don't have the money, etc. I want you to consider that the fact that you are thinking about going to therapy, it could be your intuition. letting you know, hey, listen, I think it would be really good for you. I think you need it. I think you really need to, you are ready. That's another way of your intuition and your psyche, your inner knowing, showing you that you are ready. So hopefully this video helped you with your decision about going to therapy. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked my video and if you like the content, please hit the subscribe button so I can create more of the content like that and hopefully help you in your journey of owning your inner world. Thank you very much.